Gavin, the only person I know that had a hard time starting the fire was Wayne Brown, and you can tell him I said that. So that's not your fault, it happens. Anything else? Anything up? So I saw a picture yesterday that Molly Dobbs sent me, and it was really kind of appropriate in a lot of ways because of the story I'm reading today. It reminded me of some of my childhood and how I never realized as a kid that that might in some way be connected to your childhood one day too. And there's lots of other folks who are probably experiencing similar things, but Molly sent me a picture of Jason and William out at Camp Pine Grove yesterday, standing on an Eagle Scout project I built a long, long time ago that I didn't even know would actually still be standing today. And these guys were probably playing on it a little bit, which is okay. It's okay to play on it. But you didn't know that, did you? They didn't tell you. But I didn't really build it either. I planned it and had help planning it. And some of the people out there helped me build it. Gavin's dad was one of them probably at the time. I don't know, he might have been long gone by then. I don't know. You always go. He had his Eagle Scout already, but I helped him with his or something, I'm sure. We did. But there were other people out there who helped me, and the community helped me too. And it reminded me of my childhood. And today we are reading, I'm going to say, and I'm going to read the story today. That's what we're doing in children's message. So it's a long children's message, but it might make the sermon a little shorter. So, you know, this is my very favorite book of all time, other than the Bible. Of all the books I've read in my entire life, little books and big books and expensive books and cheap books, this is my very favorite one. In fact, I got like probably 10 copies of it in my house for some of the little free libraries that are going to get it. Have any of you ever read about Ferdinand the Bull? Not yet. You did? What's that? Ah, the lollipop got away. Oh, you watched the movie. Well, this is a little different than the movie, I think. I'm pretty sure. But has anybody out there read Ferdinand the Bull? Okay, but well, that's not enough. We're going to buy more copies. This is a great book. There's a lot to be said about the guy who wrote this book and why he may have written it, when he wrote it. But for me, I think it actually means some things different than when he wrote it. This is really cool because all the illustrations kind of grew famous in their time too. And it won a bunch of awards. So I'll do my best librarian. I don't really have that soft, gentle librarian voice, but we'll do the best thing we can. Once upon a time in Spain, there was a little bull and his name was Ferdinand. All the other little bulls he lived with would run and jump and butt their heads together. But not Ferdinand. He just liked to sit quietly and smell the flowers. He wasn't like all the other bulls at all. He had a favorite spot out in the pasture under a cork tree. See him sitting and smelling the flowers? Go in there. He liked to get away to the spot. It was his favorite tree, and he would sit in its shade all day and smell the flowers. It looks kind of funny for a bull to be doing it, doesn't it? It doesn't look like a bull thing to do. Sometimes his mother, who was a cow, would worry about him. She was afraid he would be lonesome all by himself. "Why don't you run and play with the other little bulls and skip and butt your head?" she would say. But Ferdinand would shake his head. "I like it better here where I can sit quietly and smell the flowers." His mother saw that he was not lonesome, and because she was an understanding mother, even though she was just a cow, she let him just sit there and be happy. As the years went by, Ferdinand grew and grew until he was very big and strong. Look how cool that is, that somebody kept track of how big he was growing on a tree. I'll bet some of your parents have done that on walls or door frames in your house at every birthday, right? Yours has? They didn't do it for me, but we did it for Kathleen. Yeah. We still have the board. I think they actually removed the board from my house and took it from my parents to their new house. All the other bulls who had grown up with him in the same pasture would fight each other all day. They would butt each other and stick each other with their horns. What they wanted most of all was to be picked to fight at the bullfights in Madrid. But not Ferdinand. He still liked to sit just quietly under the cork tree and smell the flowers. One day, 5 men came in very funny hats to pick the biggest, fastest, roughest bull to fight in the bullfights in Madrid. They are funny hats, aren't they? Kind of. All the other bulls ran around snorting and butting, leaping and jumping, so the men would think that they were very, very strong and fierce and picked them. Ferdinand knew that they wouldn't pick him, and he didn't care. So he went out to his favorite cork tree to sit down. He didn't look where he was sitting, and instead of sitting on the nice cool grass in the shade, he sat on a bumblebee. What happens when you sit in a bumblebee? It stings you, right? It just doesn't... Yeah, you're right. Well, if you were a bumblebee and a bull sat on you, what would you do? You would sting him. And that is just what the bee did to Ferdinand. Wow, did it hurt. Ferdinand jumped up with a snort. He ran around puffing and snorting, butting and pawing the ground as if he were crazy. The 5 men saw him, and they all shouted with joy. Here was the largest and fiercest bull of all, just the one for the bullfights in Madrid. So they took him away for the bullfight day in a cart. Kind of cool you get to ride in a cart. That's neat. Like a little parade. What a day it was. Flags were flying, bands were playing, and the lovely ladies had flowers in their hair. They had a parade into the bull ring. See how fancy that horse is even dressed up? Even the horses were dressed up for this. First came the banderilleros, with long sharp pins with ribbons on them to stick in the bull and make him mad. That's a really cool thing to do. This is from an old time ago when they used to do this stuff. I don't think they do it much anymore. Next came the picadores, who rode skinny horses, and they had long spears to stick in the bull and make him madder. Then came the matador, the proudest of all. He thought he was very handsome and bowed to the ladies. He had a red cape with a sword and was supposed to stick the bull last of all. See, he looks kind of like a little by himself, doesn't he? Then came the bull, and you know who that was, don't you? It was Ferdinand. They called him Ferdinand the Fierce, and all the bandoleros were afraid of him, and the picadores were afraid of him, and the matador was scared stiff. Ferdinand ran to the middle of the ring, and everyone shouted and clapped because they thought he was going to fight fiercely and butt and snort and stick his horns around. But not Ferdinand. When he got to the middle of the ring, he saw the flowers in all the lovely ladies' hair, and he just sat down quietly and smelled. He wouldn't fight and be fierce no matter what they did. He just sat and smelled. And the bandoleros were mad, and the picadores were madder, and the matador was so mad he cried because he couldn't show off with his cape and his sword. So they had to take Ferdinand home. And for all I know, he is sitting there still, under his favorite cork tree, smelling the flowers, just quietly. He is very happy. So we're going to talk in a little bit, instead of going to junior church, about this book and our Bible scripture today. But I'm going to say a real quick prayer with you all before you go back to your parents and family. Okay? Let's say a prayer. Good and gracious God, we thank you for the books of our lives. From the Bible to Ferdinand, to the little engine that could, to Charlotte's Web, and all the other stories that mean so much to us. God, today I pray this simple prayer that these children get a favorite book as well. And that as they grow older, the book takes on new shapes and forms in their lives, but always still holds true in their heart as a connection between them and you. Whether the words come from a man writing about World War II or World War I, or writing about an experience on a farm, or writing about a story with their mother. We ask that you give these children times, people, and opportunities in their life to develop a love of reading, to grow in knowledge and love for others. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Cool. Time to go back.